On the next episode of the Level Par Podcast, I speak with Joey McDonald. Joe is the Director of Communications of the Rhode Island Golf Association, but he and I spent a lot of time together when he was a reporter at ESPN, at the Providence Journal, and he's really spent a lifetime as a sports journalist covering the Bruins, the Red Sox, and the Patriots. Joe is just an amazing guy. He's got a cool career, and we had a great conversation about our old writing days and what he's trying to do now with the Rhode Island Golf Association. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Joe, I mean, we saw each other like a month ago, and you were like, what the hell are you doing at my tournament? I'm like, I don't know, what the hell are you doing here? So, I mean, the backstory, we've known each other for quite a while, going back to the days in the locker rooms of mostly the Red Sox, I think. Yeah. But tell me a little bit of what you're doing now. I mean, it seems like, you know, Rhode Island golf is really growing, and the coverage that you guys have is growing right along with it.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was great seeing you, a month ago down at Kirkbury for the U.S. Open qualifier, and you're right. It's like, wait a minute, what are we doing here, kind of thing. And it's really weird. It was when I first started at the Providence Journal. I was an EA. I was an editorial assistant, like taking the high school scores over the phone, and this was in the early '90s. And Paul Kenyon, the great golf writer, legendary golf writer from the Providence Journal, had pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I need some help." I'm like, "Absolutely. What do you need, Paul?" He said, we put out an annual golf section, and it comes out in March, and I need you to go to Foster Country Club and do a story about how they've finally joined the RIGA. And I'm like, what do you mean, write a story? Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do then, So I went out to Foster Country Club, and the very first byline I ever had at the Providence Journal, and I still remember the lead. Over the river and through the woods to Foster Country Club we go, which is a terrible lead, right?
You think about all the shit that we used to write. Like, I look at all my old stuff, I'm like, God
it's so bad,
yeah,
so bad. Yeah. But PK was great, so so the very first byline that I ever had as a sports writer was about the RIGA. Mm. And after a pretty lengthy career as a sports writer at the Providence Journal and ESPN and The Athletic and the Worcester Telegram, and I just decided that I needed to kind of pivot a little bit, later in my life, and I heard that the RIGA had an opening, and I called Bob Ward, who's the executive director, who I've known for 30 years, and I called him and said, "Hey, I heard you had an opening." He's like, "Yeah, do you know somebody?" I said, "Yeah, me." He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, let's have a conversation." Yeah. So it's kind of fun that it's kind of come full circle a little bit, and now I'm director of communications for the RIGA, and still write about local golf, and completely different from what I was used to for 30 years, but it's been awesome. The RIGA's, we're a small staff, but dedicated to just promoting and running golf tournaments in the state of Rhode Island, and it's been awesome. I love it. I'm on a golf course every day, so
exactly.
It doesn't suck.
I mean, your summer must be like just like boom, like it's just like here and gone. Like
by
the time
what
starts.
Summer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like I mean, because you probably like what's the first tournament that kicks it off? Is it U.S. Open local qualifying? Or?
So for our first major events, yes, but we run we call them weeklies, and they're basically like one-day series. And it's one of the oldest programs of its kind in the country, and other golf associations have picked it up. And basically what we do is we have these golf packages, and they usually start in late March, early April. And you can get you and 3 of your buddies, and normally there's 5 courses per package. And you get to play some of the best courses in the state for a minimal price, and it's very popular. So that really kicks off our season in April. And it's cold out there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, but we want to play. We've been cooped up, and especially this past winter. People are just chomping at the bit to play golf.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great. You get guys like you and I who just want to go out there and play golf, and so it's cool. But July is really busy for us. Yeah. We run the Northeast Amateur over at Wannamoyset, and we just had that a few weeks ago, and then this week our state am, and then we jump into the New England am next week, and then we have our women's am and the junior am. So next thing you know, it's hockey season.
Right.
It's right. Whoa, where'd the summer go?
So do you get a chance to play as much as you would like right now, or is this kind of like this type of season where it's like I play in the shoulder seasons, and right now I'm so busy right now.
It's funny because people are like, oh, you must play so much golf, and like, no, you don't. I tell, we have interns, and I tell them every year, if you want to play golf, do not get into the golf business, because you just don't have time.
Yeah.
So I get out, and it was funny because we had just joined the club that I belonged to, Kirkbride, and it was when I was still a national hockey writer for The Athletic, and I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I got the summers off, I could play whenever I want, and then I transitioned to going back to the Worcester Telegram and covering baseball again, and now covering golf. So it's like I don't have a summer. Summer is on a golf course, but I'm working.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a lifestyle we kind of chose, right? Like when we got into sports, you're not going out when everybody else is going out. Like I remember like being in my mid-20s and early 30s and be like, okay, I'm giving up a lot right now to like go cover the Celtics, go cover the Red Sox, and it's an every night thing. When people are out drinking and having a good time, you're sitting there trying to wait for the next athlete to come out of the locker room and actually want to talk to you, which like never happens.
Never happens.
Let's talk about like your early writing career. I mean, you said you started at the Pro Joe, but you were like Bruins coverage for a long time, like especially for people in the industry. Like we'd always wonder what Joey Mack had on the Bruins because like you just had a pulse on what that team was doing. But for people who like don't know your writing and about your career, like where were you and like what were you kind of covering most up here in New England?
Yeah, when I started at the Journal, I was kind of a jack of all trades kind of thing. I started covering, like I mentioned, local golf, and I was covering high schools and colleges. And in Rhode Island, we were fortunate enough to have the Pawtucket Red Sox at the time and the Providence Bruins. So when I started covering the Paw Sox and the P Bruins, these were all the best young players in those respective organizations. So I created those kind of working relationships with those players. And as their careers kind of progressed up to Boston, whether it was the Red Sox or the Bruins, I kind of progressed with them. And so, the guys that I covered earlier in my career, the Dustin Pedroias of the world, the John Lesters, those types of players. And from a hockey standpoint, it was the Tuukka Rask, the Patrice Bergerons, the Brad Marchands.
Basically that whole 2011 like nucleus
exactly.
is people that you watched from when they were like 17, 18 years old in a system. So
pretty much.
And that's how you build
awesome.
but that's how you build networks. And that's, I mean, I think you're probably doing something pretty similar here with RIGA. Like you're seeing some of these kids like play at a junior level / like maybe they're just still in college, but next thing you know, like a couple guys are potentially knocking on the door of the U.S. Open, and it's just you're building those relationships. Is that kind of how you've always gone about the job? Yeah,
it really has. And a perfect example of that, Tom, is Davis Chatfield, local kid for us. Went to Bishop Feion, went to Notre Dame, and now he is on the PGA Tour for the first time in his career after a few years on the Korn Ferry Tour. And I said to Bob Ward, my boss, earlier in the year, I said, okay, we have to go to Hawaii for the Sony Open, because that's going to be his first PGA Tour event. And if he sees that we're putting in the time and the resources to be there, then when he does make it to Augusta or he does make it to the U.S. deep in the U.S. Open or any major, he's going to remember that, like these guys were here at the start of my career. Exactly. Couldn't talk Bob into going to Hawaii, but we ended up going to Valspar in Innisbrook during the winter, and it was the same sort of thing. And it was great to spend a few days with him, and he's a big hockey fan, so he kind of knows my background covering the Bruins, which kind of helps. And most of the time when I'm out here, all these guys and I'm covering all these golfers just want to talk about either the Bruins or the Red Sox. Hey, what was 04 like or something like that. So but you're right. It's about building those relationships at this level, and if they move on, then great.
Was like writing something was that what you wanted to do, like ever since you were a kid? Were you the kind of kid that opened the back of the paper, or like how did you fall into the career?
I read the sports section all the time. I grew up in Rhode Island, so the Providence Journal, to me was the best sports section in the country. But it's not something that I wanted to do, and I knew that anything that I was going to do had to involve sports. What that was, I have no idea. And at the time, the story that I told you about Paul Kenyon asking me to do that story on Foster Country Club, I was an EA. I took a year off from school. I did 2 years of junior college at CCRI, and I took a year off, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I saw my byline, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I went to Roger Williams, transferred to Roger Williams. University in Bristol, and you know, my hands-on training at the Journal was more valuable than really anything I learned at school.
I think about like all the schooling I did. I'm like, I should have just started working right away.
I was,
like, I didn't really need all this.
Right?
Like, it was nice to put on my resume, but like all I needed to do was start writing lead sentences and like talking to people, and then figure out what my voice was.
And I was fortunate enough, and when I lecture to journalism students, whether in high school or college, I tell them, I said, my path was a lot different than anybody else's because of that, and I was very fortunate. So, I mean, it's funny, great story. I went back to my high school years later, and I was helping set up like a reunion, and my high school senior English teacher was then the vice principal, and I walked by his office, and I hear him, McDonald, hey, Dr. Payola, what's going on? He's like, a writer? I almost failed you in senior Yale English, and now you're a writer? I'm like, it's a different kind of writing, but so I had no idea I wanted to do it, and here we are.
I mean, it's very similar to my story. Like, I just kind of dicked around. I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do, and then I was actually living in Florida playing golf and trying to get into like the PGM program, and I just drank myself out of Florida. And then I'm like, what do I want to do? And I went and saw Frank DeFord speak. He was just at USF, and it was like a free opportunity to go watch him like talk about his new book that was coming out. And I'm like, I've seen this guy on Real Sports for the last couple of years. I love his stuff. Went and listened to a talk. I'm like, oh wow, shit! I got a journalism degree and I love sports. Like, yep, I'm gonna try and get. So I moved back to Boston, got into Emerson I was playing basketball, like intramural, like in a basketball league. I met Brian Fabry, who has been covering high school sports at the Herald for a long time. He's like, hey, we need a guy to work on Saturdays. Can you do it? I'm like, yep. And that's how I got in the Herald. I had no writing experience, no nothing. I showed up to like Hank Hernowitz was like, yeah, like, do you have anything like samples? I'm like, no, I've never done any of this shit. Like, I had no clue. And I just worked my way up, and you know, we saw some cool shit. I mean, you think about like, you know, we saw the heyday of some of these. Did you cover a lot of the Patriots, or was that kind of like overlapping?
No, so I was also on the Patriots beat. Tom Curran had left the Providence Journal and went to NBC Sports at the time. And the Journal wasn't hiring, so they were like, all right, well, so they took me off the Bruins. They just added the Patriots to it. And I got right in there, and I covered the 06 season when they lost to the Colts in the AFC Championship game. But so that was like my one full-time season on the Pats. And we don't have enough time, but I mean, I've got some unbelievable stories about, you know, Belichick and I just kind of connecting. And
that's when Belichick gave reporters time.
He did.
Because he was like, it was still, I mean, like, they had won a Super Bowl or two, I think, at that point. Maybe that was 3 at that point. But, like, it was still not what it was today. It wasn't Twitter, it wasn't this, or it wasn't that. Like, you could actually develop relationships. And, you know, I kind of missed the fact that I missed that avenue of like, professional sports. I found it in college hoops and in high school sports. But, you know, to really develop relationships with these, like, high-profile athletes and coaches, like, it doesn't happen like that anymore unless you're like on the national
They're so guarded
stage.
now, and before, like the locker room at TD Garden, or, you know, or the practice facility for the Bruins, it was just one big open room. It wasn't like they had players' lounges and you know, players, you know, cafeteria, that sort of thing. So you were ingrained with these players every day. So you could get them, sit down, have a conversation with them, and you didn't have PR people kind of looking over your shoulder. Like, you could just have a normal conversation. And you know, the Belichick thing, this was totally crazy. Like, Tom Curran was, you know, one of the best, and still is one of the best Patriots writers out there. And he left, and they just thrusted me onto that beat. And I had never covered the NFL before. I'm like, what am I doing? I said, all right, I got to hit the ground running. Like, I got to figure something out. And then a friend of mine called me and said, you're never going to guess who I met over the weekend. I said, who? Bill Belichick. And this person happened to be a police officer. And I said, oh, please tell me you pulled him over for like something stupid. And he's like, no, it's the complete opposite. He actually saved the lives of a couple in a car accident. I was like, huh?
Wow.
So I called Stacey James, and who was the PR, still is the PR guy for the Patriots, and I said, yeah, any chance I can get Bill Belichick one-on-one tomorrow? And he laughed at me. And he was like, really? Your first day on the beat, and you think you're going to get Bill Belichick?
Hey, might as well, you got to try.
So I'm like, all right. Calls me back. He's like, wait a minute, why do you want Bill Belichick one-on-one? So I told him. He's like, yeah, we could probably set that up. So I walked in the next day, and I remember at the old press room at Gillette Stadium, he gets done doing his normal vanilla press conference, comes over, puts his hand out, shakes my hand. Good to meet you. You ready? Pulls me in that side room that used to be there.
Yeah.
And you had all these guys like, what is going on?
What the fuck is Joey doing?
Yeah. And so I wrote that story and I broke it that this is what he did. And I had eyewitnesses. I had him. I had the police officer. It was like I nailed this story. And that's part of the reason how I ended up at ESPN. Because Mike Reese, who ended up leaving the Globe, going to ESPN. It was ESPN Boston at the time, and they had asked him, all right, who do you think should be on our staff? And he's like, you got to call Joe McDonald. So part of that relationship that I had with Belichick turned into me leaving the Journal, going to ESPN. Great. So it was just
it's crazy how those stories just kind of pop up. How have you seen the industry kind of change, and how have you guys kind of maybe used some of that at the RIGA to start telling stories in a kind of different forum as well too? Because
it's changed so much and it's more social media these days, Tom. You hire young kids as interns.
Right.
The USGA has this great intern program. It's called the PJ Boatwright internship, and it's pretty awesome. And we're fortunate to get these young interns, and they bring in a lot of good ideas, great ideas, and it's like, okay, well, on social, on Instagram, we can do this. And I'm like, yeah, what about Twitter? And they laugh at me. No, that's not even a thing anymore.
And you think about that was our lifeline. That was really was. And we came up with Twitter, and I remember when it first popped on the scene, and if you weren't on it, you were way behind. And now no one really uses it for the way that we
I didn't want it. When it first came out, I was still at the Journal. And I'm like, I'm not doing this because why am I going to put out information when I want them to read it in the paper the next day?
Yeah, exactly. How are we going to sell papers? And the whole industry couldn't figure out how to actually monetize itself, and that's why it is where it is right now. So, but that's really, I love the fact that you're able to kind of find these kids that can bring new ideas to the table, but they're getting so much hands-on experience as well too on and they're getting kind of a real world look at what it's like to be a journalist. It is, I have a lot of people who still come to me and say, hey, my son or daughter is they want to get into it. And I'm like, go get a business degree and then figure out if you want to write. Because you can do the writing, and if you can figure out how to, write well, connect well, and then make the right connections to get into the newspaper industry, go for it. But have a backup plan, because it is not going to be forever. Yeah,
it's true. And one of my friends, his son was going to school for engineering, but really loved sports, wanted to become a sports writer, and he was begging me. He's like, "Can you please talk him out of it?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to talk him out of it. I'm just going to give him the reality of it, because I wouldn't want somebody to talk me out of it when I made that decision." But you're right. It's like, if this is what you want to do, it's like you should have a plan B, because it's so difficult now. Because it's not, you have to be a jack of all trades, really. You have to be able to do everything in the media world. And it's a younger person's business now, because a lot of these bigger companies, they don't want to spend the money. I was laid off twice. I was laid off ESPN, which was one of the worst days of my life career-wise. And then when I thought everything was going great, COVID hit, and I got laid off at The Athletic. And there was a huge kick in the balls. And it's like, all right, well, I don't want that to happen again. And the golf world is, the most popular it's ever been. And I've been able to just kind of take my skill set into the golf world and tell old school kind of stories and bring in, these young interns to kind of give us some great ideas from a social media world. And we just kind of combined both, and it's been working. Our content, I think, is good, and the numbers are up. And I was never one for numbers, right? Because that was shoved down our throats. You got to get clicks, you got to do this. And how about we just tell a good story and see what happens? I agree. I think if you tell a good story, the numbers will show up. And the fact that you have this, you have such a wealth of not just information about this sport, but this area, but just so much expertise in how to tell a good story. And you can impart that on these kids, and that they should count their lucky stars if they get a chance to learn under you, because it's just it's definitely it's a passion of yours, and it's has it always been kind of a passion to do storytelling? Yeah, I always said that there was a difference between reporting and writing. Agreed. And I think for a long time, I think I was a really good reporter, and I was an okay writer. I'd give you the nuts and bolts of a story, but when it came to reporting, that's what I really enjoyed, because I could make those connections. I could create a network of people. People trusted me, and I could get information, and that's what I really enjoyed, and that kind of helped my writing a little bit more because I knew I would have an idea. For example, where our office is, it's at Buttonhole, which is a par 3 course in Providence. And right before the World Cup started in Foxborough, there were a lot of Scottish fans staying in Providence. Pull into the office one day and there's guys out on the golf course, in the early 20s in kilts playing golf. So I walk in and one of our interns, Gordon, does an awesome job for us, who wants to be a writer, and his goal is to one day work at the Athletic, which is kind of weird, but I said, hey, check out these guys. Looks out the window and I said, yeah, they're playing golf in kilts. Right? And he's looking at me and I'm just kind of nodding my head like, so what do you think? And then it clicked. He's like, I should go talk to him.
I should go talk to them.
Yes, you should.
Yes, you should.
And he went out there and our other intern, Brady, they went out there and they took photos, they interviewed him, and
that's great.
It turned into a great little story.
Yeah, you never know like when you're going to run into a story, but you like to have that ability to look at something from a different lens. I think, because I moved into the marketing world after my 7 years at the Herald, and it kind of felt strange because you were giving up ownership of a story at times. Like you couldn't put your byline on things anymore. But if you could continue to like think in that lens and kind of move in that direction and say, hey, I know how to tell a story, and I'm looking at this thing. This is your job every single day. You might not think it's like exciting and relevant, but like I can make this thing into something. And so I think that from a marketing standpoint, there is like a pretty nice transition to go from journalism to that. So there's more avenues than ever for storytellers to kind of be out there, and I mean me to move into a book. Like have you authored a book? Have you penned a book with somebody?
So I did a book with Dustin Pedroia back. It's too long of a story to get into, but it ended up being myself and a good friend of mine who was my journalism teacher at Roger Williams, Ted Delaney. We ended up doing a book with Dustin Pedroia, My Life in the Game, Born to Play. And it really wasn't what I wanted to do. I had an idea, and I wanted to call it First Summer, the chronology of a rookie's first year in the majors. And because I had that relationship with him when he played in Pawtucket, and then I was basically moving my way up the ladder as far as being a beat guy for the Red Sox at the Journal, and he agreed. He's like, let's do it. And then editors at the Journal back then, even though there were other news writers, sports writers doing books, for whatever reason, they said you cannot do it. And the book was basically done. And they were like, you can't do it. So then they win the World Series. This was 05, so it was the year after they won the World Series. And then he wins Rookie of the Year. He wins AL MVP. They go back to the World Series with him in 07. And then in 08, I'm like, what are we doing? Like,
we got a good story here.
So we kind of tweaked it a little bit, and I got Ted involved, and he's an incredible writer. He's written several books, and so him and I worked on it together, and so it was a great experience, and it's something that I definitely want to do, and I'm pumped that you were able to do yours.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you got a fiction story there right now. Like you really do, like a young reporter and an up-and-coming baseball player, like following that same path. Why not write something about it?
Right.
So screw it. Like,
and just do it.
I think the hardest part for me was like moving on to fiction, and because we deal in so much truth, right? Like we have to deal in truth. And it was funny how you said you love being a reporter, and your writing kind of came. I was completely opposite. I didn't love being a journalist. I didn't love like having to throw like a recorder in somebody's face and ask them a tough question. Like I really just wanted to know, like, dude, you got to this level of who you are. Like, how the hell did you get there? Tell me like all the steps that you did, and like I would love to learn, your backstory and this and that, and kind of go deeper. And like I loved writing features, but like to cover the Red Sox game where it's like 2-1 and like Pedroia like bounces something off his shin, you got to ask him about it, and he's like, dude, man, it's 1 out of 162. Like, I'm like, this is the same fucking quote I got 2 days ago. So it's like, I didn't love that aspect of it, but like that's the name of the game. That's how you get into it. So when I moved into like transitioning to writing a book, like I kind of use the same like almost way of my writing style, but I'm like, I have freedom to do whatever the fuck I want. And it was pretty awesome. Have you had a chance to dive into it yet?
No, not yet. Only because when I saw
you're pretty busy.
Like, pretty busy, but I will definitely get into it. Like I flipped through it, but and it definitely piqued my interest. And how long did it take you?
So I think I I started to kind of like so COVID happened, and I actually was going to write this book about a guy who like experienced COVID alone and like finds an old putter in his closet and yada yada, and like kind of gets this like spirit of the game back. And I'm like, nah, I want to make this more real than that. So like it's like it kind of mimics my life in a lot of ways. But I started to kind of get my shit together in like 2020, 2021. And it probably took me like 3 years to like go from journaling it to, you know, writing it down by hand and then and then going through like the publishing process. And I luckily had a connection in the publishing world. Like, thank God that we've been writers for a long time. Like and also having the cachet of saying that I was a Herald reporter for 7 years was so much easier than like, you know, some Tom, Dick, or Harry coming off the street and being like, I wrote a golf book. So I could kind of have like that, you know, that resume behind it. And they took the book, so they read it and they took it right on, which was great. So like from soup to nuts, I would say about 3 to 4 years of like sitting down and being like, okay, I've been talking about this for my entire life, basically my entire writing life. So I want to write a book, and now is the time to fucking do it. Like I don't have any kids, I have a dog, that's it. Like, and right now I'm unemployed, so like now I'm going all in on this thing. And so I would say about 3 to 4 years of just
good for you.
And it's, I mean, you've been around like a lot of journalists that have actually like written books, but like not a lot of fiction books maybe. Have anyone really crossed over?
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, all my sports writing buddies have
they've all done books.
They've all done books, but Ted Delaney, who I mentioned, my friend, my journalism professor, he's gone that route, and he's written some unbelievable books. And you read it, and you're just like, how do you do this? You know, because it's easy to sit somebody down and be like, all right, tell me about your life, you know, and then I'll just write it, you know, but to actually get that creative and to say that's going to be
I think
tough process.
I think you'd be more surprised at how like natural it comes to you, like once you're sitting down and writing it. I mean, like, you know, because you have to have creativity even in the journalism world, right? Like you can't just like give you the AP style of a story, right? Like you just be writing the same thing over and over again and everybody reading it. But like, you know, you know what makes a good story, you know what makes a character this, and you can pull on, like everybody that I wrote about in that book is somebody from my life in some kind of aspect. And if there's a character that isn't a direct person, it is like multiple people into one thing. So like their characteristics, the way they move, the way they walk, the way they talk, like that's an actual person that's in my life. And I just wrote their character in that kind of way. So I thought that would be my biggest fear was like, okay, how do I go from 800 words of the Herald to 32,000 words? And once it started going, and then I started kind of like, you know, you go back to like elementary English, you're like, oh, the rising action, the falling action, this and that. And like you start mapping it out. And I remember doing that, and I'm like, oh shit, this is where he's gonna like, where all shit's gonna break loose, and then it's gonna happen here, and then it's gonna happen again. And so I kind of wrote it in like a broken timeline. So you're on the final hole, you're in his head, and you're thinking about all the shit that he's gonna do right in front of him and hit these golf shots, but also everything that happened in the past. So I look forward to you picking it up, and you know, we'll do this again at some point. But Joey, I mean, like I said, I always just got along with you. I think I don't know. I don't have a ton of friends from back on my journalism days, because like being a young reporter, when you're in the pro, like you just don't. You kind of put your head down and you just say, "Fuck it." I know that I'm writing the sidebar today. Like I'm not really breaking a story here. Like I'm just filling some space until these guys go traveling. But it was like a couple of guys I just remember like being able to talk to, and like you're just like one of the normal dudes out there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Tom. Those are good days back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can do another podcast that won't hit the light of the day. We can talk about everything. But thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. And we got a good couple of days of golf here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate you coming down, and good luck with the book.